So when we were talking in the newsroom, we were thinking about this and how Elon Musk's wealth kind of measures up to people in history. I mean, John Jacob Astor, who was the first American multimillionaire, was estimated to be worth around $30 million at his peak, which when he died in 1848 was about 1% of US GDP. Wow. Musk, by contrast, is worth about 3% of the current US GDP. So to talk to us about the Gilded Age baddies and how they're comparing to space age Musk is Gautam Mukunda. He's author and executive fellow at the Yale School of Management. All right, break it down. It's very hard to compare Musk to kings and queens and heads of state because they had things at their disposal and hard currencies that he kind of doesn't. But is this kind of private citizen wealth unprecedented in the modern written history of the world?
It's not completely unprecedented. John D. Rockefeller probably controlled roughly the same size of U.S. GDP, and sort of in terms of his wealth compared to the scale of the country. The estimates vary, but 2.5% to 3%. So he was somewhere between a little bit below Musk and a little bit above.
The coin of the realm here is power, as you point out
Yes.
in your piece. That's what you can get if you have a lot of money, and we've seen Elon Musk exercise that before he became a trillionaire. He bought Twitter, now X. He kind of controls the way that we talk and communicate with one another, at least some of us. He spent an awful lot of money on the last election. He intends to do so on the next election. Talk a bit about the way in which a person of his means, and again, it's a singular thing right now, somebody who has the amount of money that he has can wield influence, not just on building libraries, civic life, artistic life in this country, but can really kind of change the way that power is controlled in a country like the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, and the scale of that it's kind of hard to process. I mean, the way I was thinking about it last night is Sergey Brin is the second wealthiest person in the world, and you and I are much, much, much closer to Sergey Brin than Sergey Brin is to Elon Musk.
That cheers me, Gautam, to hear that.
I think that makes me feel worse. I don't like that. Wow.
And Musk himself, right? So, sort of in the Andrew Carnegie tradition for the United States, people of this kind of wealth, like, were sort of expected to give lots to charity. So you said libraries, universities, things like that. Musk doesn't do that, right? Musk's total charitable giving looks like something well under 0.1% of his total net worth. So what you're seeing is what you can buy with power is, one way to put it is, the most expensive Senate race in history was Sherrod Brown versus Bernie Moreno in Ohio. And the two campaigns combined spent about $115 million together. Not any one campaign, but together. That's what the two campaigns spent. Elon Musk spent $250 million in that campaign race. So by himself, he could swamp any US senator. But the way I would put it is, if you look at the day-to-day fluctuations in his wealth, right? Just the random motions of the stock market. So what he could spend in a political what he spent in that political campaign would be like 1% of the day-to-day fluctuations in his wealth. So he can swamp any senator, any congressman, probably any presidential candidate about as casually as you or I would buy a soda.
Think about that.
Again, this segment is not making me feel better. I'm very glad to see you, but you're not cheering me up on a Saturday. This piece that you have coming out, you use two very different historical examples. One is in Rome with the guy who bankrolled Julius Caesar, and the other is at the turn of the 20th century when Teddy Roosevelt broke up J.P. Morgan's wealth. Can you talk us through those two scenarios and kind of how they played out?
Yeah, Crassus was the wealthiest person in the sort of end of the Roman Republic. He bankrolled Caesar. What he basically did was use his enormous wealth to, well, they preserved the forms of the Republic, so the Senate still existed, right? All of these rules were there. In practice, Crassus and his wealth and other sort of Roman oligarchs combined to bypass all those things and rule the Republic directly. And that led quite directly to the fall of the Republic and what became the Roman Empire. Crassus used to say that you're not really wealthy unless you can afford to pay for a private army. That's what the definition of real wealth. And by that standard, the United States has a lot of people with real wealth. Republics have dealt with this problem through all of history, and this is maybe the most important way in which a republic falls, that because republics are very good at generating private wealth, and then people with private wealth say, well, there are only so many yachts I can buy. There are only so many, in the modern context, private jets I can buy. But power is something that I can buy that has no rivals, right? But when I have power, then I'm above the law, then I'm above everything else. But the United States has dealt with this issue before. And so Theodore Roosevelt and J.P. Morgan, when Roosevelt began to investigate J.P. Morgan's trusts and his sort of control of the U.S. economy, and while Morgan himself was not that rich, his financial network was such that he really did have a level of control over the U.S. economy that probably no individual today approaches. Morgan said to Roosevelt, if you have a problem with what I am doing, have your man meet my man
and tell us what we're doing wrong. Yeah.
Themselves, right? And by your man, he meant the attorney general. So J.P. Morgan, as you know, Theodore Roosevelt himself said that J.P. Morgan could not see Theodore Roosevelt as anything other but a rival operator of another big firm.
I want to ask. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, it says that Theodore Roosevelt, but the biggest single thing I would say that Theodore Roosevelt did is he said, that is not how this is going to work. The president of the United States is not first among equals. He is the representative of the people. And in the United States, the people rule.